Over 100 years ago, the American bison stood on the brink of extinction. Swift intervention by the American Bison Society and a handful of entrepreneurs tipped the odds back in the bison's favor, and today the species is back in full force. The bison is a conservation success story, a strong symbol of the American West, and a management dilemma. The public doesn't really understand the story about the struggle to reach equilibrium with the bison. We have lost the origins of the Yellowstone National Park herd within the depths of archives and agencies. We need to explore these stories in order to have some background to the management issues that are so controversial in our modern times. How can we balance industry and ecology? Are we able to live with the bison, or are tighter controls necessary to prevent clashes? How can we control the spread of disease and still operate in the best interest of the animals? During the 1800s, the bison dominated the plains. Some estimates place the number of bison at around 60 million animals before our intervention. To put this number in perspective, there were only around 76 million Americans as of 1901. As the railroad and settlement expanded westward, there was a demand for hunters to reduce the huge herds of bison that filled the grasslands. The devastation was nearly perfect. William Hornaday, then the chief taxidermist of the U.S. National Museum, estimated that there were far less than 1,000 bison left in 1888. Not until hunters had killed 59,999,000 bison did environmentalists raise their voices to save the remaining few. Congress created Yellowstone National Park on March 1, 1872. The purpose of the park was to protect animals against extermination, but the laws that defined the park were notoriously vague and weak. There were no specific punishments for transgressions, and it was extremely difficult to enforce those toothless rules. Poaching paid extremely well. A good bison head could bring a hunter $1,500 in New York City. Different conservation groups formed at this time in an effort to save the bison. Citizens founded the Boone and Crockett Club in 1887, and the National Zoological Park assembled bison for its own herd in 1891. Several magazines attempted to bring bison conservation to the public's attention, and in 1905 the American Bison Society formed, with William Hornaday as president and Teddy Roosevelt as vice president.
It was a period of time in the larger sort of conservation history of our country that probably relates to what is happening in Yellowstone, because it's a period of time, Teddy Roosevelt is coming in, of course, and establishing lots of national forests in the first 10 years of the 20th century. And along with that is coming a growing sense of the value of wild land in America. And it's selective, it's not universally felt, and certainly there were many folks here in Montana that probably didn't give it a second thought, but in terms of national trends, and certainly in terms of just a greater awareness of that value, as eastern cities were growing larger and as we were becoming really more than half urban by 1920 as a country, there is this increasing intellectual movement toward trying to preserve land, right? And I think the bison in Yellowstone came very much to symbolize some of the wildness of an earlier America. And so they, as a species, profit, culturally from that predisposition of people to value them in that kind of very special context. And I think they still do. And I think that's one of the reasons why the controversy still reigns today about, where should we let the bison roam and how many bison should there be. And they've always played a very special symbolic role. It's not every animal that gets its picture on a nickel. So, they do play, I think, that special cultural role. And I think that does begin to emerge during this period of time. The Park Service, and even before the Park Service was established, the park officials are sensitive to that, and they're trying to preserve and then, foster a new bison population in the park.
Around the time that Congress created Yellowstone National Park, efforts began in an attempt to prevent the loss of the bison as a national resource. Not only were there a number of formal conservation groups working for the good of the bison, but average citizens took part in the effort. For years, a number of private owners had been keeping bison herds throughout the country. Charles Goodnight, a frontiersman and rancher who settled in Texas, had captured a few surviving bison calves with the help of his wife. He purchased a few additional animals and started the nucleus of a herd that was kept in the Palo Duro Canyon, along with between 25,000 and 100,000 head of cattle. Walking Coyote, a Pend d'Oreille Indian, was the creator of another private herd in western Montana. Walking Coyote had captured a number of bison calves and pastured them near his cabin. His neighbors Michel Pablo and Charles Allard were cattlemen who were interested in investing in the bison, and in 1883, Pablo and Allard purchased 12 head of bison from Walking Coyote and started their own herd. In 1901, Congress appropriated $15,000 for the purpose of establishing a new herd of bison in Yellowstone National Park. The following year, the park purchased 18 bison cows from the Pablo Allard herd in Montana and 3 bulls from the Goodnight herd in Texas. The park kept this small nucleus herd in an enclosure near Mammoth Hot Springs in the northwest corner of the park. Buffalo Jones was game warden of the park during this period. In 1907, the park moved the Buffalo Ranch to the Lamar Valley.
Conservationists come from all walks of life, and many projects in Montana were supported and started by agriculturalists. Bison preservation was strongly supported by agriculturalists. If you look at the 5 founder herds of bison in North America, agriculturalists were a player. So was one Native American a key player. There were many people from different walks of life involved in bison conservation, and likewise all wild conservation. And I think we all have an interest in it. We all have a stake in it, and I think that's often missed. That in fact, people who have wealth and people that are not so wealthy, people that are of different skin color, people that have different backgrounds, different jobs, different cultures, all can be conservationists. This is not an exclusive club.